Good day, everyone. Now that we understand carbon offsetting and the importance of reducing emission, it's time to look at something more technical but absolutely essential, the GHG inventory. You can think of a GHG inventory like a company carbon ledger, just like financial reports track incomes and expenses. A GHG inventory tracks emission sources and quantities, so you know exactly how much CO2 equivalents your organization is responsible for. But a GHG inventory is more than just a list. It's the backbone of any credible carbon strategy. And today, we'll talk about what data to collect, how to manage it, and why this process must be robust and systematic. What is a GHG inventory? A GHG inventory is a structured quantification of greenhouse gases emissions and removal within a defined boundaries, often an organization, site, or project. It covers emissions across Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3, which we had discussed before. The goal is to identify where emissions are coming from, measure them in CO2 equivalent, and report them consistently and transparently. Before collecting any data, you need to define the organization's boundary, which part of the organization are included, just the headquarters, or all branches, or all subsidiaries. Also, you can choose for operational boundary, what activities are included. This is where you determine your scope 1, 2, and 3. This step affects what data you need and how accurate your reporting will be. Step 2, identify emission sources. Once boundaries are set, you identify source of emissions such as fuel used in generators, company vehicles, purchase electricity, business travels, waste disposal, supplier activities. A source map or emission inventory worksheet is often used here to list all activities that may produce emissions. On step 3, collections of activities data. Now let's talk about data. You had collect activity data, which is the actual usage or quantity behind each emission source, like liter of diesel use, kilowatt hour of electricity consumed, kilometers traveled by flight or car, tons of waste sent to landfills. Good data collections relies on accurate records, invoices, utility bills, and even smart metering systems. Once you have the data, you multiply each activity by its emissions factors, a number that tells you how much GHG is emitted per unit of activity. For example, a liter of diesel emits around 2.68 kg of CO2. 1 kilowatt hour of grid electricity might emit 0.58 kg CO2, and it depending on your local energy mix. The reliable emissions factors come from sources like IPCC guidance, local government database, for example, My Carbon in Malaysia, DEFRA, EPA, ISO 14064 recommendations. Once all data is calculated into CO2 equivalent, it's compiled into a GHG report, but the work doesn't stop here. You have to check for completeness and consistency. The document assumptions and methodologies clearly and prepare for third-party verification if needed for ESG reportings or carbon disclosures platform like CDP. More organizations today are using carbon accounting software to streamline this process and avoid errors. Why it matters. A well-managed GHG inventory will build trust and transparency. It also helps to set emissions reduction targets, prepare the organizations for carbon pricing, taxes, or disclose mandates. And lastly, form the basic of ISO 14064 or GHG protocol compliance. Thank you. And in our next sessions, we'll dive into emission factors, what they are, where to find the reliable ones, and how they impact your inventory accuracy.